Hi, my name is Chris Davison. I'm the head brewer at Wolf's Ridge Brewing in Columbus, Ohio. And I wanted to say welcome to the BeerAdvocate Lagerfest. Wolf's Ridge is extremely excited to be participating. I've been a user slash lurker on BeerAdvocate for at least 10 years at this point. I largely attribute a lot of my early sensory training slash beer reviewing, which for me involved a lot of learning how to describe beer to BeerAdvocate back when reviews were a page long and people like really took it seriously before the age of the untapped gut check reaction. So that's kind of like where I came from on BeerAdvocate. Did my first beer trade through BeerAdvocate, etc. Made a lot of good friends. And still follow, several pages regularly on there. So again, we are very excited to be here. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so I apologize if I sound a little extra annoying right now. But what I'm going to do right now, so I don't have to shout through the brewery, is instead of a tour around the brewery, and most of you have been in a brewery before, is just taste through some beers and talk a little bit about Wolf's Ridge and what we're all about. So I'm going to start by opening our flagship beer, which is Daybreak. Daybreak is a coffee vanilla cream ale. And believe it or not, this beer is our best-selling beer. It outsells our IPAs, our lagers, everything. So, and that's been the case for years and years. So, really proud of this beer. It kind of just began by working with a cream ale that we already were brewing called Clear Sky for years, and wanted to throw something cool on tap at the pub to fill an empty draft line for the weekend. So I took a keg and threw a handful of coffee beans into the keg and just waited to see what happened. And a couple days later, the beer came out tasting like coffee, but it picked up zero color. And so for the homebrewers out there, for those who are really into process, from that point on, we had realized that whole beans are going to give you just as good a coffee extraction and flavor as crushed beans, as steeped beans in different parts of the process, or even cold brew. All of those will yield slightly different flavor results, but you're going to still get plenty intense enough of a coffee character without ever having to crush those beans. Ours go into the bright tank or into the keg if we're doing a single infusion or something. We still do those from time to time. And then we added the vanilla, I think, on like the second batch. But this beer very quickly outsold everything else in the tap room and got a lot of really good customer feedback. So it went into bombers. It then went into six packs about a year after that. And now it's in cans. We began in bottles, 6 packs of bottles. So now we're in 6 packs of cans. So make a lot of this beer. I'll just say cheers with this first one here. A little bit more on this beer before we move on to another beer, and I also want to talk about Wolf's Ridge itself. But this beer in 2019 managed to win silver in the coffee beer category at Great American Beer Festival, and then last year we got gold, same category for this beer. So I apologize because I know most of you do not live in Ohio probably, and we are only distributing in Ohio right now, but we are pretty much statewide in Ohio at this point. And this is a year-round beer, so if you want to get your hands on, until the next GABF in a month, the best coffee beer in the country that's not a stout, it shouldn't be that hard to get a hold of. We do even send this beer through Tavour once in a while, so if you're looking for it to be shipped across the country through an avenue like that, maybe let them know that they need to re-up on their stock of Daybreak. Wolf's Ridge itself, the name I think is worth explaining. So we get our name because the area of Columbus where we're settled at, before it was the state capital, it was just wilderness, and it was an area known as Wolf's Ridge by the settlers, and there were a lot of fur traders that were going through the area and whatnot. It was basically wilderness in a little saloon town, and it's Columbus is a planned city, so the capital was moving to all different parts of the state, and then eventually the legislature decided, let's just put the capital in the middle of the state, and that's kind of how that happened, and then the name got changed. So Wolf's Ridge refers to Columbus itself, And we take a lot of pride in working with local vendors and local ingredients wherever possible. Anyone who's even remotely familiar with our brand probably knows that we make some of the best food in the state as well as really great beer. And so if you're ever visiting from out of town, I highly recommend getting any of our food, even in our tap room, but especially in our dining room. If you can book a dinner reservation, really some of the best food you're going to get in the state. Definitely in the city, we are constantly rated in the top 3, if not number 1 restaurant in the city. So we have really great food and really great beer. And speaking of great beer, next one that I want to open right now is called Moscow Nights. This is a brand new beer for us this year. And kind of with just a little bit of serendipity where I was looking to fill a hole in our brew schedule. And I saw a price point and a hole where we needed something that was maybe fruited to kind of make sense in our beer mix. And I'd also been wanting to brew with cucumbers for a long time. And so the idea that came out of that initial need was Moscow Nights, which is, we're calling it a cucumber mule goza. And so the idea is it's like a Moscow mule, but with cucumber added to it. And so that's pretty much what we did. We started with the goza, which we usually use really high grade sea salt. And then we didn't get this one quite as tart as a lot of our other gozas are. I didn't want the tartness to overwhelm any other part of the beer. And then fermented it out, and then going into the bright tank is where everything got added. So it's really fresh cucumbers. We used English cucumbers on this one, but the name itself, actually, I couldn't find any to buy, but there's actually a cucumber variety from Russia called Moscow Nights. And so that's kind of where the name kind of really made sense for a Moscow Mule inspired beer. But we used some English cucumbers in there, and then fresh ginger roots and lime. And this is just a super, super refreshing beer. It's really nice and aromatic with like lime on the nose, a lot of that cucumber on the nose as well. And then the flavor just pulls it all together. It's the right hint of tartness. And the ginger is very subtle. I almost want more ginger. We may add more ginger next year. But as you drink your glass, you start getting a little bit of that like ginger heat in the back of your neck, the back of your throat. So really just a delightful beer. I wish we made more because it's selling really well. But this one I wanted to tell you guys about, and I'm really excited to brew a lot more of it next year probably. Wolf's Ridge, we brew a lot of styles. And so, a lot of people ask me what's my favorite kind of beer to brew or drink, and it really kind of goes back and forth. A lot of times lagers is some of my favorite things to drink. But one of the things that we're most proud of that a lot of people don't think of us for is barrel-aged mixed culture sour beers. And so the one I'm opening right now is called Terre du Sauvage Green. Terre du Sauvage Green is mixed culture. It's got DuPont Saison yeast in it, and it's got 1 or 2 cultures of lactobacillus and probably 3 or 4 cultures of Brett. We do a lot of blending in our brewery. We do a lot of fermenting in the oak barrel, and the barrels are all next to each other. And so there's probably some stuff in those barrels that we didn't initially intentionally add, but it does maintain pretty good flavor consistency from batch to batch. We've done 6 to 8 batches of this beer since 2015 when the beer debuted. And this one is probably our most popular or best-selling sour beer that we do, at least one that's barrel-aged. They're all bottle conditioned, and for now they're all in 750 milliliter bottles. We are looking at maybe smaller formats in the future for this, as I know that's more popular right now. But this is another beer we're really proud of. It's got 2 medals from FOBAB, the Festival of Barrel-Aged Beer. So in 2017, it got a gold, and then last year it got a bronze. So cheers. And this beer is a super complex. It's got the right amount of acidity, but not so much to overwhelm anything. It's got quite a good Brett funk to it. On the nose, it's like more dry and fruity, but then as you swallow, you get a little bit of that like musky, horsey Brett Lamicus character coming through. And so it's really well developed. And this beer is dry hopped in the bright tank, with whole cone hops. I think this is the last batch that uses Equinox. All the batches so far have been Equinox, but we don't have any more whole cone Equinox hops left. So it's probably going to switch up as we move down the line in the future to maybe some Citra or Simcoe or whatever we can find available. So, but again, really proud of this beer. We don't always have it available, but it's around most of the year because we do a couple batches a year of it. A little bit more about Wolf's Ridge. The company was founded in 2013. I came on board about a year after that. So I just celebrated my seventh year anniversary with Wolf's Ridge this year. And, like I said, we brew a lot of different styles. One of the things we pride ourselves on is brewing true to style beers, beer that's really clean and really drinkable. We try to approach our flavors in a way that it tastes like it's supposed to, but it isn't overwhelming. We're not real big on like the super uber sweet kind of pastry stouts. We do brew some like pastry-esque stouts, but they're not crazy sweet. I really like to brew beer that's balanced. And in any case, I kind of say all of that to just say we're really known for dark beer, probably more than anything else, even though I think we make great beer across the board. Most of that is stout, but we are brewing a lot of really good barley wine. And as the years have gone on, we're brewing more and more of it. And so in January this year, we released a new one called Lord Maris. And Lord Maris is an English barley wine, by far my favorite type of barley wine. Maybe my all-time favorite label that we've ever done. Really cute little otter holding a hop cone there. And this was brewed to go into barrels. I usually don't like barley wine not barrel aged. Like even my own, even English barley wine, which I'm not a big fan of American barley wine usually. But this one tasted so good out of the tank that we decided to bottle about half the batch right then and there fresh. And so that's really, I think, indicative of how much I enjoy this beer. It's got, and really the thing that this beer is all about is simplicity and just taking our time with it. So the barrels are going to be sitting a little bit longer than maybe our other barrels go. It gets an 8-hour boil, and the recipe is like 90% the Maris Otter malt and then a little bit of caramel and chocolate for the darker color for the beer. It's super rich, but not cloying. It's sweet with all the caramel and toffee and whatever flavors that you're looking for in a traditional barley wine. I also personally find it has a really lovely black tea character that comes out, and all around just like a really, really lovely English barley wine. Like I said, we brewed this to go into barrels, and so this weekend actually, the first of the barrel-aged Lord Maris is starting to come out. This went into a couple little rye whiskey barrels from a local distillery called Echo Spirits. And then we've got some Blantons and experimental Buffalo Trace barrels that are going to come out in probably January for this beer. So those will be the next barrel aged. This definitely gets like a nice little pickup of booze from the barrel, but it's actually very smooth. These were two little 30-gallon barrels, and so there's more surface area. And I expected the beer to come out like extremely hot and boozy, but it's actually extremely smooth and well-rounded. So I'm very happy with how this beer turned out. You'll notice these are in cute little 8-ounce bottles. So here's a 12-ounce next to them so you can see. Every once in a while, someone kind of complains it's not enough beer. And if you are sharing, I agree. We usually sell these like by the 4-pack though. So it's a little bit more palatable if you need to share some. But we really picked the 8-ounce bottle because we kept hearing and really just feeling and experiencing, like a lot of you, that sometimes a bomber's too much, especially for one person. And so you don't feel as guilty about opening one on a random night if you've got 3 more little bottles down in the cellar or whatever. I'm running out of time here, but I wanted to open 2 more beers before I end this, and hope to see you in my session tasting Buchenrauch, our smoked lager, but our all-time best known beer, I should say, best selling beer is Direwolf Imperial Stout. And so the 12-ounce bottle with the purple label is just the classic Russian Imperial Stout, not barrel aged or anything. We do a lot of variants of this beer, coffee and vanilla and coconut and cinnamon and coffee and all kinds of things like that. There's a cherry vanilla version. Those are usually in bombers, but they are going to migrate into 16-ounce cans probably by the end of this year. And then the barrel-aged used to always be in bombers, but we're rotating a lot of the barrel-aged into these, again, little 8-ounce bottles. And so this is another barrel-aged beer that's coming out this weekend. We're calling this one Extended Age Bourbon Barrel Direwolf. And so the Extended Age Bourbon Barrel Direwolf, we had a single barrel. It was a 13-year-old barrel, and we rested the Direwolf in there for 18 months. It's usually about 12 months before we pull the beer out, and so we gave it extra time in an extra old barrel. And then there's no adjuncts or anything in it, so it's just unadulterated barrel-aged stout, and really, really stoked with how this turned out. But the base Direwolf is a very complex recipe, but wanted it to be like a pretty classic flavor, 10.8%, so not crazy high. It's fairly dry and fairly roasty, fairly bitter. It gets a lot of hops on the front end, and this is a beer that we want it to taste great and fresh and lively right out of the tank, but then also we want it to hold up to a long time in the barrel. And so, it's maybe more of a little bit of a classic way of approaching this style compared to some of the modern Imperial Stouts you see, but it's worked really well for us so far. We've gotten plenty of praise for the base beer and then all the variants. We had a double barrel-aged version of this beer get a gold at FOBAB 2 years ago, and so it's really just a beer that we constantly play with, putting in barrels, putting different ingredients in to really just tease out like how much we can get out of one base beer. That's great. This Extended Age is just pure fudge with a really good bourbon intensity to it that you don't always get from 8 to 12-month aging period in a barrel. Anyone who's in Ohio or passing through Ohio, we've got a ton of beer for sale on our website, or just walk into our tap room and buy that. We're in stores all over the state. And we are beginning direct-to-consumer shipping. For now, it's just Ohio, but we are looking to open other states. So if you're a fan of Wolf's Ridge and you can't get to Ohio or know anyone in Ohio, let us know where you live and where you want us to ship, and we'll look into it. It's easier to get into some states than others, but we want to be able to open up some of the states and begin direct shipment as well. So I hope that this was informative. If you have any questions about any of these beers, anything coming up about myself, feel free to, again, jump in on the chat during the Buchenrauch tasting, which is 10:30 p.m. Eastern time Friday night. And I'm happy to answer any of those questions at all. So I hope to see you there. Cheers.